assume that there are no members from the public that want to offer some comments. All right, so review next step from last meeting or other additional notes. Check in on actions from last meeting. Margaret, what do we got?
So I'm going to just do my usual sort of where are we on the schedule briefly, and then we're going to pivot to Mount Vernon Group. So let me share my screen. This should be linked in the minutes. Well, actually, do we need to take a vote on minutes before we do this?
Yep.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
Just made, seconded. Any other discussion?
Sorry, who is the second? Who is the second?
Peter Tallman.
Peter Tallman. Yep. Okay.
Councilor
Any
Tallman.
discussion?
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening. All those in favor?
Yeah, I'm going to call the roll.
Roll call.
Record. So Jackie?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Mr. Tallman?
Yes.
Rena, I see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rena, yes. Anthony?
Yes.
Camilla? We're just voting. Yes. And then Joanna? Joanna's with the interpretation, right? And Isaka.
She's also the people that are voting members would be, if they're on here, Kathy Ortiz, Jessica Perella, or Anya.
So they're not on. So I think we've got.
This is Kathy. I'm here.
Oh, Kathy, you are here.
Do you approve the minutes, Kathy?
Yes, I approve the minutes. Yeah, I am not have the camera on because I don't have my glasses, so I can see anything. It's
okay.
Okay, but I approve the minutes.
Okay. So great. So thank you. So now I'm gonna. Can everybody see the calendar that I pulled up?
Yes.
Okay. So again, I'm just gonna, hopefully this is helpful to folks. I'm just gonna walk through where we are and all the swirl of activities that are going on. So what's going on with the MSBA? So we submitted the 60% CDs at the end of August, and we've had the MSBA's comments back, and we've responded to the MSBA's comments. So that's kind of wrapped up now. Now we're sort of headed to completing, and I shouldn't necessarily say we, because the bulk of the effort is being carried by Mount Vernon Group, who are now completing the 100% construction documents, which will be available to bidders on November 22nd. So, you know, what the consultant team is doing is kind of getting ready to go to bid. A big part of that is doing what I had described at the last meeting, the filed sub-bid and the general contractor pre-qualification process. So that advertisement went live yesterday. Went live yesterday. So now people can download the information and submit their qualifications. Then the folks who are pre-qualified will be able to have access to the bid documents on November 22nd. So that's going on. On permitting, we're moving along. We had the second stormwater permit hearing on Monday, and the stormwater permit was approved. We have the third site plan review meeting on October 24th, and there have been about, 5 back and forths with the planning board responding to various questions. The middle school building committee, this is you. So here we are meeting tonight, and then we have a meeting scheduled for November 16th. Now, I do want to ask, we really need a quorum for that night. There is at least one vote we're going to be asking you to take, and there may be more than one. We're going to talk a little bit about the one vote tonight, just to kind of brief you. So if you cannot attend November 16th meeting, could you email me and or Aaron during this meeting and let us know, because then at the end of the meeting, we'll take a look. If we've heard anybody say they can't come, we might have to look at a different date. That is the last meeting before we go to bid. So that's, part of why it's important. So on design review, I'll actually, Chris, why don't you have had so many coordination meetings with different folks. Do you want to just give a bit of an overview of the meetings that you've held, including several that happened this week?
Sure. So in the past few weeks, we've done, as Margaret said, a number of coordination meetings with some of the city's departments and groups. Some of those would include, we met with the kitchen group one last time, Christy Prosser and members from Sodexo, et cetera, for a final review of the kitchen layout, the equipment. They were very pleased with the final layout. So I sent them the final plan and the equipment specifications for their final review. So we'll look to get any last minute comments, but I think we're in good shape there. We held an updated security meeting with Superintendent Soto, Sean, and a couple of other members of the leadership group and administration. That went well. We specifically dug into two minor issues. One was just school access. And then the interior navigating of security, et cetera, cameras and so forth. And then we also discussed any type of emergency type of response and lockdown events. So that went well as well. We are going to build upon the city's current, I believe it's, I forget the name of it, the security system you're using. One of the things we'll point out a little later will be the proprietary items that the district wants to include in this project. One of them is the security system. I think it's a Vigilon. And then one of the other meetings we're going to have a technology meeting tomorrow with Christy and some of her staff just to go over the infrastructure for the school, racks, attachment points, data outlet locations, wireless points, and things of that nature to make sure we've got everything prepared for once we're under construction. We're going to meet with the technology group and administration to discuss actual equipment purchases, Chromebooks, computers, phone systems, et cetera. So this meeting tomorrow will make sure that the building has all the required data, cabling, and electrical locations for that. We did have a follow-up hardware meeting with our hardware consultant, Whitney and Sean, to discuss, all the door hardwares, the lock sets, et cetera, how they operate, minimizing handing out keys and that such. So that went well. We also met with Superintendent Soto and the cabinet, and we presented the latest color schemes that Susan's been working on. And we're going to present that to you very shortly. With them, I think we got very good response. They seem to approve the direction we're going in. Susan's prepared some nice renderings to show the schemes and explain the color usage, et cetera, to this committee. I think things are progressing along very well there. And then, obviously behind the scenes, the design team is continuing to meet with our staff and consultants, acoustical, structural, electrical, technology, HVAC, et cetera, to coordinate all the information in the documents. It's a pretty huge undertaking and a daily task. So that's going well. We are looking to release the documents, as Mark mentioned, somewhere around November 22nd. So at this point, we're still shooting for that date. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to just continue more of the following. As Mark mentioned, we did get our stormwater permit approval Monday. We've met with Jeff Burkott of the planning department this past Tuesday, and that went well. We've provided some additional response comments to their review comments. We sent those over today. We'll be meeting with him on Tuesday night, the 24th, I believe. So we're hoping to get that site plan approval process closed out. I had a good conversation with Jeff and Mimi and Kate of the building, the planning board. Afterwards, we just kind of discussed their concerns, make sure in a big picture, just they explain where they're coming from and we explained our end of the process. So I think that was very helpful for both sides to understand and come together to make sure we can get this done. So it's kind of the basic update. We're going to share with you a little later after Susan's done, the proprietary items and maybe some value engineering potential. Our budget is currently in good shape, but MSBA always likes to have in the back of their pocket, make sure that the school building committee understands that, there's some items that, if we absolutely had to look at, we could look at for value engineering. But I will tell you, given the fact that this is a model school and the fact that, our philosophy is to take a very value management approach from the start to maintain that budget, which I think we've done a pretty good job at this far. The value engineering items, other than the dingle, which I think everybody's aware of, as an alternate, the value engineering items will not save a substantial amount of money, maybe altogether a couple $100,000. But in the scheme of things, we look at that as, if you start looking at that, it could have maintenance implications down the road. For example, if we start reducing wall tile in the corridors to save a little money, well, then maintenance down the road is going to have to do more touch up with paint and drywall. So again, those items just don't seem to be, worth it at this point. But we'll present that to you just for your understanding and vote. I think that's pretty much it, Margaret.
So I see
Mark-
Mark's got his hand up.
Excuse me. Yeah, I just was curious if there's been any, major issues with the site plan review, or you see that concluding soon?
Yeah, Mark, no major issues.
That's good.
The planning board has their typical checklist of review. A lot of it is based on their experience with developments and things that have gone on in the city in previous times. And what I tried to explain to Jeff and some of the board members, which I think really helped, is, once our documents are finalized and we go out to bid and we have a number, there are no changes after that. I mean, things that may come up are regulatory, et cetera, but unlike maybe some developers, we're not looking to make modifications down the road. This is our design. This is what the city's paying for. We're going to follow that through. A lot of times developers come with the final plans before they submit, because they know who the developer is, and it's probably them, the builder. But from our standpoint, we've got to get our approvals before we go out to bid, which means our plans are around 60-70%. And while the design is final, there's some little, notes and things that have to be added, right? So I think once we explain that process, they better understood where we were coming. So I don't see any major hookups. We're looking to, we want to work with them and make sure this is successful and get it done.
Sure. And just a quick question on the technology you spoke about earlier. Is fiber optic going to be run into this building?
So we're going to talk with Holyoke Gas and Electric about fiber. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. Fiber is run to the schools at this point?
Yep, and that's done by G&E.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
So we'll coordinate that along with, Mark, there's still we'll have, if cable is not desired, we'll still have a spare conduit in place in case
Okay.
down the road cable needs to be added as well.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think Chris did a nice job of summarizing. I mean, the Holyoke's planning review process is not really set up. It's set up for the review of private development. And I think Chris has done a really nice job helping them understand it's a very different paradigm here. So we're hopeful about our third meeting with them. The one other thing I didn't talk about, but I want to mention, is we had a fabulous photo op on Tuesday. I hope everybody saw. Mayor, do you want to say a couple words about that?
Well, that's the next item on our agenda here.
The next
Mary.
item on the agenda. Okay, well then, let me just ask, or let me just say that we're continuing to have weekly meetings, which Petros is leading with the construction team. And I don't think we need to kind of get into it too much here, but they're on site, they're working. They are kind of mostly, I think, done with the abatement and getting ready to do the real construction. They do have to get all the services shut off to the building before they can pull the demo permit. So that's taken a little longer than we originally anticipated. But Petrus, do you want to add anything else to that?
Margaret, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. They're about 75% through on the interior with abatement. They're moving along well with day-to-day operations. There are a few coordination items that Margaret had mentioned just in order to get their demo permit, but those are in the works. Specifically elevator decommissioning and shut-off cutoffs for the utilities. But you know, to date, American Environmental, based out of Holyoke's, been great to work with. So just keeping that moving along.
Yeah, and they did help us coordinate a really fun event on Tuesday, and the mayor is got some real heavy equipment expertise now. So should we pivot to that? Josh, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, Aaron, anything to add? Aaron
Aaron
Linville?
Brunel, so Aaron Brunel is not here.
Linville.
I
Linda.
forwarded everyone a couple of the articles that have come out. You can read.
It was great. I got into the machine and was able to take a little pick at the building and watch the bricks fall. And it ended up pouring on us, which I think it was, isn't that like a sign of good luck if it rains during, but I think, you know, it did get a lot of attention, and it felt good to be at this point to just more like a, what do you call it? It's more like oh man, not a statement, but just kind of a moment there that we were all able to share, knowing everything that's happened before that's got us to this point, and then now just being able to take that machine and do that one piece there, just kind of like signify like the next steps that this project's actually moving forward. So it was good.
Yeah, I thought it worked out well. So the nice thing about the rain is that you do typically want to kind of water down construction dust. So the heavens cooperated and did that for us. So that was good.
Anybody else that was there want to say anything? Peter?
Thanks, Mayor. You did a great job. I wanted to get up there too, but I guess they wouldn't let me. My hat wasn't fitting too well, but it was a good moment. Yeah, as you talked to it, it was a special moment because all the work that's put in so far, we've got to a point like we were talking early on. A lot of the meetings we're moving down the football field, you know, and it was almost like we're just about, you know, not there yet, but we're closer to the goal line, like you know, like 5 yards to go and to get this building done. But it was a great event, and hopefully everything will go smoothly. I got a chance to talk to Chris, and everything looks good so far with you know, with the meetings with the city departments and with the progress that's going on all together with this school building. So looking forward to the taking the building down and moving in January, February, and starting the construction, and everything seems like it's all on point so far. So hopefully things will go well. And I agree. I believe just started to sprinkle a little bit, started raining. I do see that as a good sign. I do agree with you. Rain is always a good sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Symbolic. That was the word I was looking for.
Amen. There you go.
Any other, Anthony? Anything? You're good? Is he still with us?
And I'm good. You said it all.
Here we go.
Only thing I'll add is there's no turning back.
Good, very good point.
I think you could move the goalposts at this point. Updates on permitting meetings. I think you just offered that, right, Margaret?
Yes.
Site plan, stormwater hearings. We're good.
Yep, we're good. Covered that.
Update on early stage package construction mobilization. We went over that.
Yep, we did that.
Review and discuss next steps regarding interior colors and finishes. This is the hard part. Never mind everything else that got us to here.
This is some of the really fun stuff. So I'm going to turning it over to Mount Vernon Group for the next steps here.
Okay, so if everybody remembers, at the last meeting, we showed you, Susan had met with some of the administration. We got a direction for color schemes. We talked about that at the last meeting, the direction we were given. And since then, Susan's developed, more defined palettes of colors, some renderings for you to view, et cetera. We shared those with the superintendent in his cabinet on Monday. We got some really good feedback and response. It appears that everybody is in approval of the direction we're taking. We'd like to share that with you. So I'll turn it over to Susan. She'll share her screen and walk you through the process.
Hi, everybody. For those who haven't met me before, I think there's some new faces here. I'm Susan Taylor. I'm the senior interior designer with Mount Vernon Group Architects. I've been working on schools for about 20 years now. So it's something that I really enjoy doing. It's my spot to be in. So let me share my screen. I'm just going to tilt this for a second. There we go. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
And it has the PowerPoint up on it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me just share this. Okay. So this is just the beginning of it, is just kind of a recap of what was presented before. We had a meeting, just like an initial kickoff meeting to discuss the colors. We talked about the color placement, where the color would go, whether it's on the walls, the ceilings, I'm sorry, the walls or the floors. We talked about the color palette, whether they were bright colors or softer colors. We also talked about the materials, and some colors are better on some materials than others, whether they wear well or there's more color options, or there's more longevity in the building. So you might want to stay away from some of those sort of like trendier colors in those regards. So we discussed all of those topics. This is a slide just as a refresher. This is the second floor plan, and it just denotes what the finishes are on the floor, because that's really what we kind of look at for the beginning of our color scheme, and we kind of build on from that. So the majority of the building is going to be VCT. It's a very commonly used floor material that we see in schools all the time. It's a 12 by 12 tile. It has lots of colors, and it gives us the opportunity to make patterns on the floor. Carpet is used in smaller offices, and also in the media center. The carpet's in blue. The green is ceramic or porcelain tile, used in all of the toilet rooms, as well as both main entries into the building, both on the second floor and the one on the first floor, which will be shown on the next slide. The gold color is a wood flooring, so wood flooring on the stage, in the platform front, and also in the gym itself. The purple color is in the cafeteria. We're using a linoleum. It's a sheet goods. Just needs a dry mopping, so there's no waxing required for that. You could wax it if you want to, but then you're stuck in that waxing cycle. So just a dry mop and cleaning is suitable for that product. The pinkish color is a rubber flooring.
Susan, could you lean a little bit closer, because it's a little bit harder to hear you than some of the others, and I'm not sure how good the recorded audio will be picking you up. Thanks.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Wonder if I can turn up my own volume, if that makes a difference. I'm going to turn it up. Does that help any? Am I still?
It's good. I just think you need to project.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, I'll talk a little louder. No one's here in the office. Okay, so where was I? Oh, just talking about the pink color. So the pink color is a rubber flooring. So it's like a sports flooring. It's got a little more absorption, and that would be used in the fitness room and also the OTPT room. Let's see. And then the gray color is a sealed concrete. So that's in mechanical spaces, custodial spaces, but also in the art room as well. So we put that there. So let's see. Next slide. So the next slide shows this is the first floor. Again, you'll see most of it is that VCT color with carpet in the administration and some smaller offices. And the dark green is tile, whether it's in the toilet rooms or in the main lobby entry. So our discussion was about color placement and how we could use it. We talked about having really strong patterns on the floors or really strong patterns on the walls. And we determined that strong patterns on the floor would be more suitable as opposed to the maintenance that might be required to repaint an intricate pattern on the walls. So we opted for the floor. We also talked about using a lot of color in the school or minimal accents. You know, even though there's only one color as an accent, they still have a brightness and a pop and a cheeriness to them. So we opted for something in this vein. We looked at bold colors and we looked at soft colors, and we determined we kind of want to be somewhere right in the middle. We also looked at sort of the background colors or the background palette colors, either a warm color or a cool color, so a cool palette. We opted for something kind of in between, like warmer grays as opposed to cool grays. We showed 6 different predetermined color palettes. We sort of, you know, I like to do this because it shows, you know, people can react very quickly to some, and you can sort of eliminate some immediately. The ones we eliminated immediately were the one that sort of has those southwestern colors. Didn't seem like this community. Also, the bright colors just seemed a little too young for a middle school age group. The red one seemed to be limited in its accent colors and how we could use it to sort of make each grade level more individualistic. The yellow and orange didn't seem too suitable. It's very sort of excitable. And the last 2, the purple and orange and the yellow, green, and orange seem to be good fits. What we did from there, we took a little tour of the Ludlow School, and we looked at the color placement and how color was used. You can see in the lobby, we limited our accent colors. Most of it was the neutral palette, and then we just did pops of color here and there. They had a much bigger lobby than what is shown in the model school. But it was just to talk about how color might be used. And then in the classroom areas, we used a lot more color. And that's where we tried to make each of the neighborhoods or classroom wings a little more individualistic to make them have their own sort of identity. And we'll be doing something like that here between the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. So then we came back and we looked at our color palettes again, and we sort of mixed and matched and moved them all around, and we came up with this color palette here. So it's a green, a blue, and a purple. And we talked about the purple would be very much a transition color from the 8th grade up into the high school, where the nice is the color there. So it was kind of a nice color to use in the 8th grade classrooms. And then the green and the blue, we paired those. They're cool, they're sort of calming, but they have a bright, clean tone to them. So we use those as well. We weren't sure of what the school mascot may be. So when we do a color palette, what we tend to do, so from here, I took these colors and I brought them back to the office, and I did a little more research on, you know, the products and what was available, you know, in terms of tile, in terms of flooring, and other things, so I could sort of move them all around, and came up with this particular color palette. So in a color palette, what I like to do is use one color that is, you know, or 2 colors that are used throughout the entire building. And I kind of call this the unifying accent color. So that brings everybody together. And then it's symbolic of bringing everybody together as a community. And then each grade level or each wing, depending on you know, how the school is organized, has their own, you know, accent color that is used very much more so in their own neighborhood or classroom wing. So the 6th grade, we would use this teal, the 7th grade, we would use the blue, and the 8th grade, we would do this purple. So the way it would work is the 8th grade, we would pull from this, the 6th grade, we would pull from all of these colors to generate our color placement. In the 7th grade, we would use all of these colors, and in the 8th grade, we would use all of these colors. So you can see they're sort of, you know, making that one color representative of that particular grade. And then when we have, you know, spaces that are shared by everybody, common spaces such as, say, the cafeteria or the media center, we would use a touch of all of these colors. Now, there's a lot of color on the screen, but we wouldn't necessarily, you know, use color everywhere. There would just be highlighted areas. So from there, we generated some 3D images. So we use the green as sort of our unifying color, and then we use just a little bit of yellow. The reason for that is it's just a pop of color. Green, purple, and blue tend to be on the cool side, so we just wanted a little bit of warmth and a little bit of pop, so we pulled that in there. It's not used that heavily, it's just to sort of balance the cool palette. We also used, so we used green as our unifying color. The way the color palette is designed, each one of these colors can kind of be swapped out. So if we determine like, oh, green is not really the right color because our school mascot is blue, then we would sort of swap all these other greens out and maybe use green somewhere else instead of blue. So there's a lot of flexibility in the way the color palette is determined. And that's on purpose, so that we have a little bit of room to change as we get more information as we move through the project. Okay, this is just a shot of the gymnasium. This is a shot of the media center. So you can see we have a little bit of the aqua on that wall on the back. There's a little bit of yellow, purple is represented on one wall off to the left, but also in the furniture. And then off to the right, you can see the blue color there. And then we have a little bit stronger floor patterns in this zone. This really highlights, there's like a walking path that goes through the library. So we wanted to highlight that the kids should stay on that walking path and not meander through the library. It's very much an intentional sort of direction that we want them to take. This is a shot of each of the corridors and how, even though the corridors are the same, we're using color and we're just swapping it out for each one of the grade levels. So we have the teal, we have the blue and the purple, and then you can see the green in the background. So they each kind of have their own identified color, even though the architecture itself is always the same. This is a typical classroom and how we might use accent colors in the classroom. This represents the purple colors. So they're a little bit softer and muted. They're not super bright and excitable, but we use them to sort of highlight different features in the classroom. And it's you know, not every wall is painted a color, so it's very it's somewhat easier on the eyes. And I think, oh, and the last one is this teaming area. So each of the neighborhoods has an open area for teaming. It's off the corridor. There's no walls. There's flexible seating there, maybe some soft seating. It's easy to be arranged. And we've done some stronger patterns in here, knowing that the furniture may be rearranged over time. We have done somewhat of a fluid pattern, very organic. So it's not really forcing or directing the furniture to be arranged in any particular way. And then we're also just using the colors of the particular grade level in there to really highlight it and make it unique to themselves. And I think that is the end of the 3D images that we have for now. So if there are any questions or comments, or if Chris and Margaret, if you have anything to add.
No,
Anybody have questions?
Susan, can you take the presentation down just so we can check and see if anybody's got their hand up?
Sure. Yep.
I am not seeing any hands.
Excellent.
Okay.
Great job. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, well, thank you for your interest in this. I really appreciate everybody turning out to see this.
Some of the
Anthony.
fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just, I wanted to, and I know it was mentioned earlier, but we had a cabinet meeting where this was reviewed and there was a lot of discussion at it. I'm really happy with the colors. Especially you saw some of those like really, really bright colors. For a middle school, I thought these softer, more neutral colors were way more appropriate, and I'm really pleased with the color palette that was recommended.
This is game changing. And Anthony, just put a note on this for the next time we talk, but this is the kind of design work I want to bring on board to start fixing up our other schools. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to say for everybody involved, I love it. So I just wanted to express that. And, good work.
It's amazing, like the look and feel and what it can do to anybody that walks into that building. It really sets the tone, the expectation, the direction. That's how spaces should look and feel. Any other questions from anybody?
No, I was just gonna say, I'd like to touch on that. If any of you have been in Peck, you felt stuffy when you were in there, and looking at this presentation, you feel like you can breathe, right? You have that open airiness and a great learning environment for the kids that are gonna want to go in there and be at school. Whereas Peck now is just stifles you, and all you want to do is just run out the door. So this is a great presentation. Thank you, Susan. It looks amazing.
Thank you. I just want to give a shout out to Erin Brunel and Sarita. And Sean, we missed you, of course, on that particular day. But they really helped drive this color scheme really with the students in mind. They wanted to see something that was really representative of their students and that their students would really enjoy.
Anybody else? Great job, Susan. Thank you.
Okay.
Overall design progress update. Chris, back at you.
sure, thank you. So Susan, if you can go beyond the thank you slide.
Yeah.
I've inserted a couple of comment slides that we can share.
Okay, I've got to share again.
Sure.
I don't see the share screen though.
You're already sharing your
You might
screen?
be sharing.
Oh, am
yeah.
I? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you are.
It's just not in present mode, but that's okay.
All right.
Just
Great.
move to the next slide.
Oh, it's on a different PowerPoint. Sorry, it's on this one.
Okay, there it is. Perfect. All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So overall project update, we've pretty much touched on a lot of these comments, and so I want to back up just for a second. Susan and I have done a lot of schools. I've been with Mount Vernon Group for over 23 years. I've done a lot of school projects for cities and towns, and I do want to let everybody here know that we've been working with the various groups, departments, administration, some staff, etc. It's been a pleasure. Things are going really well. Enjoy working with, representatives from the city. And I think that's going to really help make this a smooth process. So, with the update, we've reviewed the MSBA 60% review comments. Not a lot of comments, but there were some things that they wanted to add and get more information on. So we turned that around in about 2 weeks as they require. We have not heard back on anything. It should be good to go for now. We do not have any, we're checking, but we don't believe we have any future submissions to MSBA before we put this out to bid, but we're confirming that. Typically with a model school, that's not required. We've been conducting follow-up meetings with the various owner groups. Like I mentioned, kitchen, planning board. I reached out to the health department on some items. They're good to go. We're keeping everybody in the loop, touching base where we need to. Whitney and Sean, anytime I've had to get information, they've responded. So that's kind of really moving along, which is kind of important at the pace we're going and the schedule we're keeping. We met with Sean, Whitney, and HG&E to discuss the roof solar scope and the update. So MSBA requires that our roof be solar ready. Northeast CHIPS and/or LEED certification also requires that our roof systems be solar ready. As a model school project, in any of our projects, our roof is in fact solar ready. We identify a good majority of the area to be applicable to receive solar panels. And when we met with HG&E, we discussed a lot of the process. What I like to do is engage the community or the powers to be early, because some communities may want to coordinate this and get that installation done during construction, so that when the school is up and running, these systems are running. That was kind of our initial thought. When talking with HG&E, they are going to need some more time to do some research. They're sending me information. It's probably likely that this will be done either towards the end of the project or after the project's completed. Given the fact that Holyoke has its own electric company, I'm given to understand that the rates are very reasonable, if not very good. So when you're looking to engage in power purchase agreements with some of these companies, the rates they offer are, and I'll just use an example, maybe 12 to 17 cents per kilowatt hour. According to HG&E, their experience is that these companies, in order to meet their price point, they need to be much lower. So they're going to do some research on there, and we're going to continue our discussions and meetings. The roof is still going to be solar ready, and if we can make this happen during construction, we will. But if not, it'll be done hopefully shortly thereafter. Ongoing design team coordination, we've talked about that. Early site package, contractor support. So the contractor has, forwarded a couple of submittals for products already. They've, submitted a couple of requests for information. We're processing that information on a timely fashion. Once again, we want to help the contractor be efficient so they can get their work done in a timely fashion. The interior colors and finishes, Susan's presented those. Great job. I think it's a typical of her efforts and very specific to the community. I'm going to share with you a couple of updated exterior renderings to show more defined exterior colors and what they can expect. We're basing it on the Marlboro School. For those of you who have seen it in person, it's a very nice deep red brick with a tan brick at the top and a nice natural cast stone base. We'll look at that. Stormwater permit was approved, so there's another kind of check box or box check. And then planning board, as we talked about, our next meeting's on the 24th. We're hoping to get that approval done. Any questions on progress? Okay. Next slide, Susan. So a couple of things we wanted to talk about, and I mentioned. First would be the proprietary items. Given that this is a public bid project, we are required to specify the owner's preference or a very good material, and then 2 equals to give the contractor that option. But in many districts, the facilities staff has certain requirements to meet and kind of coordinate with current systems in the district. And that varies from district to district. But when we talk to Whitney and Sean, 3 things that they are requiring to kind of match everything that goes on in the district. One would be the notifier fire alarm system equipment. So they can manage that. They have the same vendor that'll service it, maintain it, et cetera, throughout the life of the school. The Corbin large format removable keyways and all their hardware. so that the key system can be managed and kind of replicated throughout the district. So you're not carrying around these huge chains of keys, depending on which school you go to. And then lastly, the Avigilon surveillance network. So those are three things that we want to bring to your attention. We are going to ask that this committee and the school committee vote to approve those, so that in our specifications, the contractor is required to provide specifically those three items. And we'll have the paperwork and language. We need to have a good reason for that. And Sean and Whitney have provided that, and that, as I mentioned, is to match current district, equipment. The second item would be value engineering items, right? So MSBA wants to know that we've discussed with the owner that if the bids or estimates continue to come in high, there are some areas where we can look to save some money. Alternate number one, the Dingle site development, is our kind of big ticket item at like 1.2 million or so. That will be, if our bids come in favorable and we can accept that, we certainly will. But it gives us an opportunity to protect our budget, so that if, the base project of the school and the site come in a little bit higher than expected, then this may be something we can pass on. The other four items are very kind of minimal in scope. The four altogether will save you about $250,000. But again, they will have maintenance implications. For example, ground face block to a standard painted block. The ground face block has a nice manufactured finish. It doesn't require maintenance, so it's just natural cleaning. But if you get into removing that and changing it out to a painted block, then there's the upkeep of painting over a period of time. The tile, the same thing. If you reduce the tile scope, you've got to provide painted walls. And then Sean and his team, Whitney, it's going to require more maintenance down the road in painting. Landscape and granite curb, kind of the same thing. So those are kind of the items that we're proposing as value engineering. I think everybody knows that so far our 60% budget has been favorable, but we don't want to don't want to jeopardize that as we move forward. We want to maintain the efficiency of the model school and really concentrate on providing the value where it's really needed, for both the school and the future maintenance. So that's kind of the project update. Are there any questions on any of these items? Margaret, do you have anything to add?
Do we have to?
So just to add, so we thought it was a little awkward to show you the stuff tonight and then ask you to vote on it. So we'll take the vote at the next meeting, which is why I was saying at the beginning, it's important to get a quorum for that meeting. So this was just an opportunity for discussion tonight. So Mark, what was your question?
Do we have to vote on the value engineering items as well?
You have to, yes, you'll have to take a vote to confirm you discussed them.
That just to confirm that we discuss them, not that we want them.
Well, let me just say, nobody really wants value engineering. What you're voting on is a path to solving a budget problem, should you have one. That it's basically a vote on a plan. So this list is a plan. And so, yeah, it's, hopefully, as Chris said, we don't need to use them, but it's having a plan. That's what the MSBA wants, and it's a good structure.
Anything else? Okay, next slide, Susan. So here's an update of the front elevation from the southeast. It gives you a better idea of how that building is going to sit on the site. The color structure. Again, if you've been to Marlboro, you'll notice it's very similar in how it looks. They've even graciously illuminated the lights for us in the rendering. But it shows how the parking and site circulation is laid out and kind of goes around the building, if you will. Shadows the rooftop equipment and how that will be situated. There's some larger pieces, but they're not oversized. They will blend in, and quite frankly, from the ground, you will barely even notice them. So this gives you a pretty good view. And then the next slide will give you a view from the northwest. So kind of looking at it from the back end of the school, so to speak. Shows you the parking coming around the back, the drive, the service area, the pedestrian ramps that will come out of the community area towards the back end of the building. And then you can see towards the lower portion in the right-hand corner, the generator, propane tank. There's some dumpster locations. Those will, for the most part, be screened with some plantings, etc. That larger area where the ramp is kind of the loading and receiving area for the custodial and kitchen areas. So it just gives you a kind of a good look of how the building is going to sit on the site. Any questions with any of those?
Mark, go ahead. And I got one too.
Yeah, at one point there were some areas of sloped roofing. When did that go away?
So if you could go to the previous slide, Susan. So Mark, if you look in the front corner at the bottom, right there, exactly. And then there's one over the main entrance. Those were slightly pitched.
Right.
And given the fact that we have some slight modifications in the programming, Mark, for the spaces, right? Trying to accommodate those pitches with gutters and downspouts. And more specifically, we had to reduce them to meet the local zoning heights. We have to be below 35 feet.
Right.
And those pitches brought us above that. We really didn't want to start asking for special permits. We want to make sure we just get this done and work with zoning and just match, be within their regulations.
All right. And it does add some extra roof area for solar panels if we ever do go that route.
It does. And quite frankly, it also reduces costs by eliminating some of that framing.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to get a little savings there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I got a question. The next slide that you were on. So, and this is just to keep in the back of your mind. This is the side that faces toward the field and toward Route 5 is what people see when they drive up and down Route 5. And so, as we go forward, just keep in the back of your mind, like what we can do there visually to let people know that, rather than this box building wondering what it might be, that, what we can do visually to show that, yeah, this is the newly built middle school. So.
Absolutely. Anything else? That's all I have. I think we're done with the presentation, Susan. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. No other questions for Chris? General overview of pre-qual process for field sub bids and general construction. Margaret, Chris, take it away.
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit. I mentioned this at the beginning. So this is a process that gives public entities some amount of control over who is bidding on the project, and it's sort of an interesting distinction because, truthfully, you get the best bids if you have lots of bidders, but you also don't want to have a situation on any kind of construction, but certainly on public construction, where you have someone who's not qualified to do a project of the scale. So you pre-qualify what are called trade bidders or filed sub bidders. I think there's 15 or 16 categories of those, and then you also categorize the GCs. Now, the good news is that when we see you in November, we'll be able to tell you who has applied. And we'll, at that point, I don't think we'll be necessarily saying in a public meeting who's pre-qualified, but what the goal right now is to get the maximum amount of participation in this process. So if you are familiar with any public bidders, this is a great time to let them know to participate. We're using a system called BidDocs, which is an online system of bidding. Historically, the BidDocs, the filed sub bid process was very sort of paper intensive. The bid docs process has really streamlined it. As soon as we have pre-qualified everybody, instead of sending out letters to tell them they've pre-qualified, they get a notification. So it's a pretty seamless process that I'm glad to say I haven't done it, but Petros is our office expert on this process. So thank you, Petros, for leading this process for us. And it involves a pretty intense amount of coordination with a committee. We're required to have a pre-qualification committee, and the folks on that committee are Jamie, because of her role as procurement maestro in the city. Sean is representing the city, and then we have Petros and Ksenia from our office, and Chris, it's you, and is there someone else?
Yeah, I'll probably have
Luis,
another person. Yeah,
probably.
Louis, probably.
So it's you have to look at all the filed sub-bid pre-qualifications and the general contractor pre-qualifications. It's very intense flurry of activity, but it sort of spits out the other end telling us who's bidding. But right now, we want to drum up interest in the project and get everyone pre-qualified, because if someone decides on November 15th they're interested in bidding, it's not going to work. Actually, Petros, what's the date for the submissions? They have 3 weeks from.
I believe it's November 8th.
So it was advertised this week. They have 3 weeks to submit their pre-qualification, and then we have 2 weeks to turn everything around. So very, not very well known, but really important part of the public bid process. So no questions?
No questions on that? Thank you, Margaret. Next item here, review school committee process on naming of school. I think Erin wanted to bring this up, and she ain't here. I can tell you that at our last school board meeting, well, first of all, so that folks know, I did empower the school board to kind of take the lead on this process for the naming of the school, and really wanting to get some sort of recommendation from them as a result through some sort of process that helps engage the community and kind of come up with a decision on what we should do with naming of the school. I know at our last meeting, one of our committee members talked about ensuring that we look at it through the DEI lens. How we can do that, I guess we're at a point right now where it'd be great to have some sort of, we're going to need someone to facilitate this. And I don't know, Margaret, considering, or even Chris, working with other communities, what have you seen done? Are there people that helped facilitate this level of dialogue that helps us get to a conclusion? Because I think we have I don't know what our time frame is before we have to actually make a decision.
Well, I mean, it's not been unusual. I haven't dealt with this specifically for school renaming, but I have pretty frequently been involved with projects where there was a sort of public art process, and typically there's been a separate committee established. It seems like that would be a good structure for it. In terms of timeline, I don't know, Chris, I'd say they probably have at least a year before we're ordering the signs that are going up. Yep. So, I mean, you do have some time, but that time can go by quickly with a complicated process. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So first off, my experience, Mayor, has been renaming the schools is not to say it can't be done on any school, but it's typically those communities that start merging schools, right? We're going to take 2 elementary schools and merge them to 1. And in order to provide a new identity, so you don't have the Peck schools including 2 schools, but we're going to keep the Peck name. So renaming is not necessary, but my experience has been it's usually when they merge 2 schools and create a new identity. Timeline, you've got until we need to order the lettering, which at least a year. That's not a big deal. And then many school districts go through the school board, as you say, and they might have a subcommittee that would engage the community. Put it out on Facebook and the local community channels for ideas, right? And you'd be surprised, you get some really good ideas about the name and the mascot and things of that nature. And then the school department would narrow it down and make a selection. That's
okay. And if anyone else has any other ideas or suggestions, and we don't have to talk about it right now, but feel free to send me or any one of us here the communication. But in a nutshell, though, just know that, you know, I really want to. Again, this is a pivotal moment in our city's history as far as, you know, schools in receivership, transitioning to local control, the work we've done to, you know, get to a point where we can offer a middle school environment, and a good one at that, for our kids. You know, there's good and bad when it comes to the Peck name. And so, you know, what does that mean to people? Are people okay with continuing to use the name Peck? I wanted to put Peck behind me, but when I researched who Peck was, I think we should continue to use the Peck name because it's very relevant. You know, the things he went through just to bring junior high schools into Holyoke, and that time he did a lot of progressive things in that time in our city's history, and I thought it was very appropriate. Or maybe just not a name of a person. It could be a name of just not saying this should be it, but like the middle school of excellence or whatever. That sets the tone and the expectation. But you know, I want, considering the school board has been in a voluntary role for the past 10 years, you know, I think it'd be great to give them some sort of connection to the naming of this school as a symbolic gesture almost. But any other points on that? Questions, comments?
So I just want to comment, at the end of the event on Tuesday, as we're all getting rained on, our clerk, Lee Figgins, came over to me with a gentleman who turns out to be the great nephew of Dr. Peck.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives in Springfield. I'm sure he would be interested in chiming in, but he's the first person I've met who, you know, had personal recollection of Dr. Peck. And I think it would be interesting as part of this to engage him. He seems like a super nice guy. I don't think he would be in the least bit offended about the school being renamed, but it is an interesting piece of history that we have somebody who knows something about his Dr. Peck's upbringing. So
that'd be great to bring him in and hear more.
Yeah.
So, all right. Review school committee process. No, we just did that. Next steps. Upcoming meetings. November 2nd at 6
November
o'clock.
16th. Should be
So
November 16th.
There's two. There's a November 2nd. There's a November 16th.
Yeah, I think we've canceled the November 2nd meeting.
My mistake. We were holding those two dates, and then it was decided that we only needed one based on feedback from the design team. So let's disregard November 2nd. That's my bad.
All right. Next meeting scheduled for November 16th at 6 o'clock. Everyone, make sure it's in your calendars. And possible topics for future meetings. Does anybody have anything you want to include on the agenda? Do you just want regular updates as we go forward?
Well, we do have a meeting scheduled because Aaron had set these meetings up on a bi-weekly basis. The next meeting that's in the calendar after that is December 7th. And then we have a meeting scheduled for December 21st. Now, I'm not sure at this point, and we'll confirm this on the 16th, that we're going to need a December meeting. We won't have the bids back until Petros and Chris help me here. The bids are available, the materials available to bid on November 22nd. So we're getting the bids back
December
Just-
20th.
December 20th. So I would say that we would, I mean, just the thing about December 21st is you're really pushing into the holidays. It's a crazy time for the schools. So I think what we want to talk about on the 16th is whether we want to keep that meeting or whether it's better if we send out an update to everybody, an email update, because at that point, if we have the numbers back on the 20th, we won't have had a chance to qualify all the bids. So what we'll be able to tell you is how many people bid and what the range of the bids was. So, and then by first week of January, yes. So we have a meeting scheduled for January 4th. So what I would say is the January 4th meeting is a due. And the December meetings, we may give you email updates instead. So we'll confirm that on the 16th, okay? But definitely hang on to that January 4th date, because at that point, we will have probably had a good opportunity to qualify all the bids, and we'll know where we stand. Okay.
So when do we need to vote on those other items? Do they have to be
So
part of
on the
any bid
16th,
package?
yeah, on
Okay.
the 16th, we'll have you vote on the proprietary items and the value engineering notions, the plan B. Okay.
Okay. Is there a reason to wait?
We didn't post it for this meeting, so I don't
Okay.
think it's appropriate to take it.
Yeah,
If
I
we had
agree.
posted it, I was reluctant to put something in there that people would be like, what are they talking about? So we thought we should fill you in before we asked you to take a vote, so. Okay, so I think that's all we got.
Excellent. If no one has anything else,
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
seconded.
You guys are fast. All right, I'm gonna quickly call names. So let's see. Mark is yes.
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Peter Tallman, yes.
Yes.
Josh Garcia.
Yep.
Camilla,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Raina,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and Jessica Barella for the close. All right, it's unanimous.
Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night. For the holidays.
Happy